For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:06 on CJAD 800. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. Hello, Josh.
Hello.
And we welcome in studio. We're going to talk fashion this evening. Appropriate because, our audience is probably mainly women tonight. And Robert Stroll of the Lime Boutique is in studio with us. Hey, Robert.
Hey. Hi, Dan. Hi, everybody.
Now, first question is the easiest one. Tell us about yourself and about Lime Boutiques. There are three of them, I believe, right now in the Quebec area.
That's right. We're three Lime clothing stores, very fashion clothing. We target mainly women from 15 to 35 years old. We bring in new stuff every week, and we manufacture about a third of our goods right here in Montreal. And what's fun is we put little Canadian flags on the labels inside the garments, so you can see very easily what's made here.
Not just for the Habs, because they're going to win tonight, but because it's made in Canada.
That's right. GHG.
GHG. Go Habs, go. Now, how long has Lime Stores been around?
Lime Stores, the first store opened about 6 years ago, downtown in Lake Royale in the metro level. So we get a lot of nice metro traffic walking by. We're right next to American Apparel. And that's good because we have a very affordable price point. So we need a lot of traffic to come to the stores and sell a lot of volume.
Now, why retail? Why did you get into retail? It's a tough business. And 6 years ago, just around the time where, some financial crisis hit, you're opening up retail stores. So why go into this business?
Well, we don't get a gold star for timing, that's for sure. My family is wholesalers. They manufacture all their goods right here in Montreal, and they sell to retailers in Quebec and into the United States. And it was sort of a natural progression and an area where I saw a lot of growth in retail. So we opened the first store, and right from the start, we set it up that it would be scalable. So we picked our structure of the stores, our inventory system, our point of sale system, everything that would be scalable. So should we hit it big, we can really get into a speedy growth plan. You saw a lot more opportunity with retail in-store than the manufacturing side in Canada? My family's really good at what they do. As far as domestic manufacturing, it's tough. Retail is a bit of an extension from them. We work really closely. Is a big synergy between the retail and the wholesale side. They're talking to a lot of their customers, which is my competition, and I'm getting information from all my wholesalers. So between the two, the retail and the wholesale, we're getting information from all sides of the industry, and it's really been a big advantage for us.
I'm sure. Certainly the history in the family works really well. Online store, we're talking with Robert Stroll of Lime Fashions. And we also have a question on our Facebook page, Dan, at www.facebook.com/FullerLandauMTL. And the question tonight is shopping online versus in-store. Which do you prefer and why? So a little later on the show, we'll get to some of the answers, and certainly get Robert's perspective on, why he has or hasn't gone online yet. But let's come back and focus on the store themselves. Why the location of a retail store is absolutely huge. Why that particular location? And was it difficult to find? Did you look at several locations before you got there?
It took us a long time to pick our first location because, like you said, location is important. And the other really, really important aspect of the store is the rent you're paying. It doesn't come up in day-to-day operations, but at the end of the day, it's one of your biggest expenses. So we had to find a combination of a mall with a lot of traffic and a rent that we can afford. Also, when you're starting retail, not all the malls are willing to talk to you. So we found a willing partner in Lake Royale who took us in, and they've been very supportive with us, and we've been very happy there.
So you're saying landlords and real estate developers and owners aren't always so easy to deal with.
That's right.
And the smirk on his face that nobody can see. Have you ever signed a lease before coming into this business?
Not a retail lease.
So what did you learn? I mean, you went through that process, I'm sure, as you wanted to get the best deal for yourself and not get, I guess, screwed by the landlord. What are maybe some of the tips or things that you learned while you were going through there?
Yeah, well, like anything else, it's good to get advice on in any area where you don't have experience. So we worked with a broker that specializes in retail leasing, and really it's like any other broker or real estate agent you would work with. So they have your interest in mind when you go to sign the lease. And from my experience, different landlords have really different leases. Some are simple 1 or 2 page documents, and some are 60-page books with small little writing and a lot to pay attention to.
And this first lease, was it a book or just a couple of pages?
This one was a little complicated. Took us a while to go back and forth, but at the end of the day, I think both the landlord and us were happy with the agreement.
And how did you go about choosing the location? You mentioned you used a broker, but what kind of qualities were you looking for in a location?
Well, we were looking for a lot of foot traffic, which they had. We were looking for a mall with similar retailers, because I think when you have a hub of similar people, it's not just competition, but it brings your customer to the mall. Especially when we don't have a presence yet, it was nice to have American Apparel and Olivia and a few other retailers down there with us.
Now, when you're thinking, did you know you wanted to be downtown, period, regardless of the building yet? Was that your first strike, as be downtown Montreal?
It didn't have to be downtown. A lot of retailers in Quebec, I don't think, start downtown or even have any Montreal stores. It's really, really competition heavy. All the big U.S. chains that are coming to Canada start in downtown centers like Montreal. For example, our Three Rivers store doesn't have any competition from H&M, from Zara, from Forever 21, from Simons even. So downtown happened to work out, and really it's been an amazing store for us.
Now let's talk about the other locations. You opened up first downtown. Soon after, when was the next store that you opened? How long did it take before or after you opened up the downtown location?
The next store was pretty much in the works right away, or by the time we opened the first store. Sort of after we set up the first store, it was like the build out phase. We were already working on the second store in Place Versailles in the East End. That we opened about 6 months later. And that's a bit of a different clientele. It's nice being a small store like us. We could cater to each area and their quirks a little bit differently. It's a bigger store for us. We can spread out a little bit more. It makes sense because downtown real estate prices are more.
Square feet is expensive.
That's absolutely it. So it's a bigger store. We could spread out. We have more goods to choose from, and a little bit different layout, more table space, different merchandising.
Now, you talked about kind of the competition around you downtown versus other locations. When you're looking at Place Versailles or in Trois-Rivières that you're also going to talk about, how important are really the stores around you?
I think the stores around you are very important. There's a lot of changes going on in the East End. Anjou, Galerie Anjou is right there. They have an H&M, they have a Simons. So we find that there's a shift going on. In Three Rivers, definitely we are able to sell some products that maybe you can't sell downtown because you don't have all these big U.S. chains with their price cutting strategies. But we are pretty good at selling affordable clothing, differentiated and really fashionable. So we put our stuff up against any of the competition.
Merchandising, it's a really big aspect to your business. And when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit about where you find your styles, how you find your styles, and how do you really know what's going to sell.
And you can head over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/FullerLandauMTL, and answer our question. We're talking about online versus in-store shopping. Which do you prefer and why? And we'll get to some of your answers after the break.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
721, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller for today's Entrepreneur. And this evening our guest is Robert Stroll of the Lime Boutiques. There's 3 of them in the Montreal area, fashion boutiques. And we were talking a bit about finding a location, Josh. And we're also going to tackle the question of shopping in-store versus online, which is our poll question on the Fuller Landau Facebook page, facebook.com/FullerLandauMTL. Andriane says, I agree, it's very convenient to shop online, plus you don't have to deal with the crowds, but personally, I still prefer to shop in-store because I want to see, feel, try on the items. Lisa says, I agree, depends on the item. Love shopping online for the convenience, but I can check multiple stores and pricing reviews online. But for some things, Lisa goes on to say that it's better to sort of touch and feel it in person.
And I think we'll find that most people will say, it's so much easier to see what's out there in one-stop shop online. But when you actually want to go buy it and try it on, I mean, listen, we all know that body shapes are different everywhere, and not everybody has the same style and curves. So actually going and seeing it are exactly that. So Robert, I kind of turn to you and say, when you're out merchandising, when you're out looking for the next best fashion wear, what do you do? Where do you go?
Well, your supply base is extremely important to business, fashion business, and we're bringing in goods, a lot of new goods every week. So just in the amount of goods that we're bringing in and the limited quantities of them, it would be hard just to put them online. You really need to be coming to the store every week to see the new goodies we're getting, because if you're not there, they could be gone.
Do you purposely hold product back and try to bring something new out every week or every other week?
Oh, we don't have to hold back. We have shipments coming from New York and from LA, and our own manufacturing from here. Last week, the store's got about 90 to 100 different styles. This week they got another 75 different styles. So we're a high volume business. We're bringing in really fashionable items, and we really try and pick the it items. So even if I feel like we're earlier on trend because we're small. We could get the 8 items. We don't have to commit months in advance like some of the big competition does. So we can go out, we can find out what the 8 item is of this week or of this month, and we can bring it in. For instance, now we have this this great denim anorak jacket. It's got an acid wash. It's really cool, and it's probably on the radar for the big competition for next season, for fall. But right now we're blowing it out, and we're able to bring it back in.
Now, the number of SKUs, I mean, there must be a way to manage inventory. I mean, if you keep bringing in stuff, now hopefully stuff flies off the shelf, but managing the number of SKUs, the number of units that you bring in has got to be a challenge. When we come back after the break, we'll see what your answer is to that.
Robert Stroll of Lime Boutiques joining us this evening on today's Entrepreneur, 724.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
727 on today's Entrepreneur. Robert Stroll of the Lime Boutiques in studio with us, and Josh talking about fashion, which is something that you're probably well versed in it better than I am, I think.
Fashion, well, good thing it's radio, but hopefully I'm not too bad. The ladies in my life make sure they're not embarrassed when I leave the house.
Boys are looking sharp tonight.
There you go, thanks.
He's always more sharp. He's wearing a suit. I'm wearing a hoodie here.
All good. But when we left, we were talking about kind of managing inventory, and Rob, you were kind of talking about bringing in new styles all the time. But there's got to be either a limit or a certain way where you manage it, because in as much as you want goods to fly off the shelf and go out the door, and you want new goods in the store all the time, you got to manage what's there, and you can't,
Yeah, absolutely. And having a good POS system, a point of sale system, is essential. So we have each of the stores tracks their own inventory and then feeds it back to my headquarters computer, and we separate everything into departments and sub-departments, a lot like most retail chains would, bigger chains. And it keeps track by style and by class, the sell-throughs, how much markdowns we need to be taking or we are taking, the margins by class, and we manage everything both at the class level and at the item level.
Now, when you first got into this, did you have a knowledge of how to keep the right amount of merchandise in the store?
At first, it was one of our mistakes at the beginning. It was not having enough inventory. As you can imagine, having too much inventory or not enough inventory is
They're both bad.
Big big no-nos. And now we work with a company that helps us plan an open to buy, which is managed every day at the class level. So not only do we have for the whole store enough inventory, we do it by class to make sure we have enough, not too much and not too little inventory for each class. And that also helps with the cash flow, because if we're building up too much inventory or it's not selling fast enough, we could go and hit that class with markdowns and keep room for the new goods to come in.
So software is important for you.
Software is important. We took a lot of time picking our point of sale system, and we picked one that can grow with us.
Now, when you're thinking downtown, Place Versailles, Trois-Rivières, where, I know that there's got to be buying trends in different places. So quickly, just before we head to the break, can you just say, are there major differences between locations?
The bulk of the goods are the same for all the locations, but we are able to put special orders in for each of the locations. The Three Rivers Grill is trendy in a more basic way. They like some basic tops with little details, with little pockets, with little buttons. Downtown, we sell a lot of jeans, a lot of wear-to-work stuff for the business girl. And we definitely took some time, but I think now we have a handle on it.
Robert Stroll joins us of Lime Boutiques. More with Robert in a moment. We'll also talk taxes later on with Nick Moratis, tax partner at Fuller Landau.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:37. Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and this evening our guest is Robert Stroll of the Lime Boutiques. 3 locations in Quebec, including at Découvre Montréal, and started in 2008, right, Robert? So a bit of a difficult time to start. Nonetheless, you've succeeded. Let's shift the gears a bit to marketing. It's particularly marketing, sort of in that recession context, must be particularly challenging. And
we know, I sense Robert embodies that word of mouth that come see my store and buy. But when you first started, when you first opened that store, at the best of times in 2008, what went through your head as far as how do I get people to come through to my store?
Well, really, our mantra has been like, believe in the product and let the merchandise speak for itself. You put the right product there at the right price, and people find you, people will talk about you, and the word will spread. And we put really all our effort into finding the right product and bringing in new product every week, really amazing, fresh, differentiated, affordable product, and that's really been our goal. I think that we haven't really tapped into marketing, especially social media. We don't have a big marketing budget, and I think that there's a lot that could be done in social media, and it's just one of the ways we can we have room for improvement.
So really looking ahead, you say, you know what, we kind of have our footprint, people are getting to know us. Sometime in the near future, maybe we got to put a little bit more effort.
Absolutely. I think it's a necessity.
And certainly where you are, you concentrate on location with foot traffic. That in and of itself, I guess, is a bit of a marketing play. Definitely
the locations we chose were partially for the foot traffic. And I think at the end of the day, if you put the right merchandise, the fashionista girl is going to find you.
Now, you got to have the right merchandise, but you also have to have the right people on the floor selling that merchandise. The people, the employees that you have, the staff that you have got to know their product, have got to know what they're selling, they've got to have a good technique, they probably have to have a nice smile, they probably, they're selling fashion, they got to embody the fashion.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about, how you find these people and what your criteria were.
Absolutely. Finding a great staff is critical to small independent retailers. It's actually one of the ways that we could differentiate ourselves from the big box stores and the big US guys, because you go in there and you're just a number and you're shopping for yourselves. And good customer service is something that boutiques like ourselves and other independent retailers can differentiate themselves on. And we're lucky to have a really great staff. We train them on selling. We do put pressure on them to keep up certain metrics. We measure them every week in a number of things. Anywhere where they're falling behind in items per transaction, for example, we give them more coaching so that they can improve their selling ability. We teach them how to handle customer service issues. And also staff's important to help curb things like theft. We teach them what to look out for, greeting people, that sort of thing.
Hopefully they also look good in your product.
The girls that we have look great. They wear our product. They're like walking mannequins.
That's good. With a little more life.
With a little more life. But when the girls look great in your product, you have customers come in every day and ask, where is that from? Can I buy this? And then sometimes they buy the whole kit.
Now, do you have to deal with a lot of turnover, or have you really been able to kind of keep your staff?
We've had staff that have been with us for about 5 years, some 4 years. And around that base staff, we have had some turnover. A lot of the girls that work for us are students. Some of them graduate school and leave to their fields. And that's sort of the nature of the game of the temporary staff or the part-time staff.
Is it tough to keep morale in the store? Do you have like an effort to try and keep them happy and pumped up, if you will?
I try and keep morale high. The girls come in, they love fashion, they're working in a fashion boutique. We have a lot of traffic. The stores aren't quiet too much, so I think that it's not too hard to get excited when you're getting new exciting merchandise in every week, something new to show off. It's always something new to show the customer, some new fashion, some new trend, some new product.
In terms of, fashion obviously, it changes, at least a couple times a year. There's new trends coming. How do you sort of keep up with the trends, and how do you sort of prevent yourself from falling back? Because it seems like an exhausting exercise just keeping up with everything.
That's exactly it. For some people, it would be an exhausting exercise, but if you love it, then it's an exciting exercise. And as we mentioned before, we get a lot of information. We talk to other retailers. We talk to other wholesalers. We're getting information from all parts of the country and the U.S. and from both sides of the industry. So it's an exciting challenge. And for me, when we find out a new trend or a new item that's selling or a new vendor that's happening, it's exciting for me to go chase down that merchandise and bring it to our stores.
Excellent. Dan, let's go back to our Facebook page. Maybe you can mention one or two more comments that came in for the shopping online versus in-store.
Sure, facebook.com/FullaLandauMTL. James says, online all the way. It's easier and quicker for me to find the item that I want from the comfort of my own home. Jamie says, I shop in-store for almost everything. Despite not loving shopping, I still prefer seeing the items and dealing in person. And Euros says, for me, it depends on the item. I'm more inclined to buy in-store and purchasing clothing or big ticket items. And he says he will shop online for electronics, for example, which does make a lot of sense, really, because if the product varies, like clothing, it's great to try on clothes, but if it's just a TV, then
Yeah, but then there's also if something goes wrong with the product, I guess you want to go back to a person and not chew them out, but some people do, and you want that service, you want that break, you want to say, hey, you know what, it was the wrong product, I want service coming back. And while you might be able to do that online with their policies, certainly in-store and dealing with a person is really much more important. Robert, as you look back in the 6 years that you've been in business, is there anything you would have done differently?
Definitely, there's some hard lessons we've learned along the way. Our store layout, store design, while really cool, we spent a lot of money on maybe some unnecessary features. We've put in really cool lighting, but we used 8 different types of light bulbs. And so now managing burnt out light bulbs is a little time consuming for me. We started with the companies with SBL loans. And we took the government was willing to give us a chunk of money, and we took it, and maybe we didn't need that full amount. So once we took maybe more than we should have, it put a little bit extra pressure on us to pay back those loans while starting a company.
Coming up to 7:45 before traffic, we do have an update on the game, ladies and gentlemen. Lars Eller scoring for the Canadians, 1-0 Habs early on in the first period.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:49 on today's Entrepreneur, program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. Dan Delmar, along with Furla Landau's Josh Miller, along with the hockey game, which we'll be tracking all night long. 1-0 Habs early in the first period. Our guest this evening, Robert Stroll of Lime Boutiques, and we bring in Nick Brightus, tax partner at Furla Landau, to no doubt discuss something tax related, or at least in terms of structure.
And just as the Habs plan for their win tonight, so do entrepreneurs have to plan for their structure. And I know that Nick has come up with a little table that he's going to share. Of course, we're on radio, and he's going to verbally share it with us. But Nick, tell us about your trio structure.
I guess I can't watch the game and tell you later, so I'll continue. It's a trio. It's what most entrepreneurs should be looking at in the structures. It's probably a little too soon when you're just starting up, because unlike a trio, it costs a little bit more. But it's something that you should be looking to strive for. And then the three elements to that is your operating company that's doing your business, your holding company that is accumulating the wealth of that business, and a trust that would be owning these two structures to allow you to accomplish certain objectives. And I'm going to look at 5 items that you got to be in the back of your head. One is the accumulation of wealth. And where's that going to be? It's not going to be in your operating business, because unfortunately operating businesses can fail. Operating businesses can face creditors, and you don't want your cash that you're accumulating over the years sitting in there. So where do you want it? You want it in a holding company. You're looking for tax deferral, and that's what that tax that allows you. If you own the business yourself and you're pulling out the profits of that business, you're paying tax immediately on everything that you're taking out, whether it's a salary or dividends, and there's no chance to accumulate that wealth without paying tax. Having a holding company receiving the dividends from your operating company allows you to defer that ultimate tax that the government hasn't taken out against you till way down in the future.
Because, of course, distributions between two Canadian companies does not attract any tax.
If structured properly, will not attract tax, exactly. The other element that you got at the back of your head is exit strategies. Exit strategies is hopefully that you sell the business one day. And if you're structured properly, you're looking at getting access to the capital gains exemption, which in Canada today for 2014 provides zero tax for the first $800,000 of capital gain on selling the shares of your business. If it's just you, yourself, and I who own the shares, well, that's one $800,000 exemption. If your family happens to own the shares through a trust, you can multiply that by the number of members of your family.
But you do have to plan ahead for that. You can't just kind of throw in that structure and hope you multiply that.
You're not calling me up the month before you're closing to do something like that. This I call it strategic planning. Just as you have a business and you're doing strategic moves as to how you want to place your business model, this is where you spend some time as to, well, how am I structuring while the business is going? And that's where you have the trust and the holding company. And at the end of the day, when I'm looking to exit, how do I accomplish the best in terms of tax minimization? And that's where we're looking at trusts. The other thing with exiting is, unfortunately, as they say, there's two truths in life: one's taxes and one's death. Is estate planning, and a trust provides you an excellent vehicle to actually encompass immediately a basic exit strategy. Should something, God forbid, happen to, say, you and your spouse, well, if the trust is the owner of the shares of the company, it doesn't pass away when you pass away. So you've basically managed to allow a transfer of wealth to the next generation while you're alive and you control it. And that's an advantage that you could not get if you just owned it yourself.
Now, you forgot the third truth about the Habs winning the Cup this year. But I'm sure that entered your mind. You just didn't want to say it.
I'm not looking at the big screens here, so...
Today's Entrepreneur on CJAD, our guest Robert Stroll of Lime Boutiques, and Nick Brightus is here talking structure. He's a tax partner at Furla Landau, and still 1-0 Canadians. It is 7:53 on CJAD.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:55, Robert Stroll from Lime Boutiques is our guest tonight on today's Entrepreneur. We'll have his one piece of advice for the entrepreneurs in a moment, but first some more advice on structure with Nick Brightus from Furla Landau.
So one of the last elements with this trio structure is creditor proofing. Obviously, if you are the only owner of your business, As a businessman, there are liabilities out there, and if anyone goes after you, he goes after the shares of the business. Whereas with a trust, that owning the shares of the business, that doesn't really do anything. It affords you a certain degree of protection for the value of those shares. This structure is not something that you can start up. I mean, if you could and have the means to start off from day one going into business, you can. But this is something that tends to grow, and it has evolved over time. So usually you probably start your business when you first start, you're the only shareholder. You got to see if it's going to be successful or not. As you start becoming more successful and you start generating cash over the years, and you don't want to leave the cash in the company, well, then someone will say, well, let's get a holding company going. So you get the holding company going, and the holding company is going to be the depository of this extra cash that you can invest, and it becomes like an additional retirement pot for you as you go down, as you age. And then finally, you start developing the trust, because the trust also affords, which I don't recall if I mentioned, income splitting, because especially if you're married with children, it is a means to divert funds between the spouse and the kids. All this, so that's the strategic plan. It is not something you do, as I said, 30 days before. It takes usually several years before that exit. And this structure is sanctioned by the government and could continue for many years, decades, as a business is operated and grows.
I guess the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurs, is to decide when. And if you mentioned, okay, may not do it at the very beginning, as I'm sure Robert, has a simple structure, I believe, because he's more focused on getting his business off the ground and more focused on, the merchandise and the profits and customer service and everything that runs a business. And at a later point, at what point does the entrepreneur wrap his head around the fact that, hey, now I got to maybe create something that's going to save me and my family and my future generations a whole bunch of tax.
Well, that's part of the discussion with the advisors, as part of the discussion as to how the business is going, and et cetera, because the trio, as I said, can evolve. You can grow into it. You can undo it as well if you get into it and it's not working. You can undo it. But that is something that a businessman has to when he's going into business. And I think at the beginning, if you can't focus, you need to focus your energy on your business to get it successful. Otherwise, this trio or the duo or the single operation it is of no relevance to the owner of an unsuccessful business.
Lots to think about, lots to plan. Just as the Habs are planning their win, as they're winning 1-0 halfway through the first period. We'll turn to our guest, Robert Stroll of Lime Fashions, and ask you, Robert, what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur?
A piece of advice is to really make sure that you love what you do to open your own business, because you're competing as a small business owner against much bigger players with much deeper pockets, much more resources, and if you want to compete against that, you got to be ready to outwork them, and you got to work 7 days a week. You got to love what you do so much that in your free time, you're bettering yourself and your business. You're reading books, you're reading blogs, you're spending all your extra time, your time at home, talking to people, talking to your wife, bettering your business. It's every day. The stores are open every day, so you better love what you do.
And certainly, Dan, we hear that often, the passion. The little takeaway that I'll get, it was from earlier in the show when Robert, came out and said, you know what, you can't know everything. And the parts that you don't know, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to go out, whomever it might be, family, professionals, friends, colleagues, associations. Go out and find out what you don't know, because that's what's going to also help make you a success.
Robert Stroll of Lime Boutiques, founded in 2008 in the middle of a recession, now doing rather well. 3 locations, very impressive. Robert, thanks for coming in tonight on Today's Entrepreneur.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks, Nick Moratis, as well. Josh, we're back 2 weeks from now? Next week?
2 weeks from now. Next week, Victoria Day, 2 weeks from now.
Right, so we'll see you then, Mondays at 7 here on Today's Entrepreneur. It's 8 o'clock.